Throughout history, war has occurred when centralized groups of people feel threatened by either real or perceived resource scarcity and perceived differences in fundamental values, because they're not actually real. We are all the same and want the same things. But up until recently, whether a population has enough resources or not depends on luck when it comes to geographic location for international trade and how the people are being governed. It also depends on what other countries' living standards are like compared to their own. Why does someone over there have something I don't? Ignorance is bliss, but when we are aware that someone has something desirable that we don't, we're going to want it. That's just human nature. In today's world, geographic location does not have to play as large a role in economic well-being thanks to both the internet and blockchain technology. Both of these advancements open a new door where anything of value can easily be exchanged on an international level, regardless of your country's governmental situation and without middlemen. For example, hardworking Iranians who have absolutely nothing to do with politics have an extremely hard time spending their money outside of Iran. But it no longer has to be this way because the tools are there. We can finally operate independently when it comes to finance, which means that the fundamental origin of war will no longer exist. See, money is not the root of all evil, but its inhibited flow by centralized authority is the cause of all war. War has always been fabricated by the world's elite, the centralized bankers and government heads who are the true profiteers of war and profit by getting their populations on board with their agendas using hate. Socially engineered hate is often created using propaganda so that citizens can be ignorantly okay with their agendas. After all, nothing is government funded, but taxpayer funded or credit funded. If a country goes to war and the people aren't okay with that, this can be a recipe for disaster for those in power. This is why in American movies, it's always the Russians and Chinese who are portrayed as the bad guys. There are already plenty of wars, trade wars, psychological wars going on between these countries, and this helps make the population subconsciously resentful of a people they probably don't even know. The Nazis are another recurring theme in movies to distract people from the main cause of World War II, one of the main causes, which were bankers. Check out the book Wall Street and the Rise of Hitler by Anthony C. Sutton if you want to learn more about that. But in every geopolitical conflict, it's a question of obtaining more resources and money for a very small group of people. Not really values, that's just what they want people to think. Japan bombed Pearl Harbor because it wanted to conquer territories that could provide oil and rubber, not because they didn't like apple pie and baseball. But if people everywhere, thanks to decentralized finance, can have easy access to currencies that hold their value and use them without trade barriers, they can feed themselves and their families more easily and finally be financially independent. Decentralization annihilates these imaginary borders, trade restrictions, and leverage of corrupt leaders which cause international violence in the first place. If people everywhere can freely transact with everyone else without governments and banks trying to steal a piece of the pie, why would anyone, instead of war profiteers, be okay with war?